I have the honor of introducing our first of a series of panels that we're doing over the course of the Art Summit. And this particular panel, we're thinking about Pewa. And Pewa was something that came up earlier in the morning session. Pewa, healing and truth speaking. And I am going to introduce Mina Elison, who will be the moderator for that panel. I do want to just say, and in terms of the inspiration of the panels, that this butterfly patch, and I think Mina has a picture of it that she's going to share with you guys. But again, it's really thinking about the beauty of the Pewa in the umeke, that it's the Pewas, the repairs that make something beautiful. And the one thing that I think about with Pewas is the material of the Pewa has to be stronger than the wood, than the original fracture. You know what I mean? That's oftentimes why the wood is a darker color, or it's sometimes even if you get a fancy Pewa, it's ivory, right? So how are artists functioning as our societal Pewas? How are they identifying the fractures that surround us? And how does their work seek to bring and heal? Yes, Pewa. Okay, so I want to introduce Mina. I need my glasses for this. So everybody, this is Mina. And Mina is a Kanakaʻiwi curator, born and raised in Kailua on the island of Oahu, with generational ties to South Kona on Hawaii Island. She's currently the curator at the Donkey Mill Art Center in Kona, Hawaii, which we're so pleased to have be one of our venues for the Hawai'i Triennial. She curates exhibitions and programming featuring local and international artists working in diverse media from kapa to film. She sees the gallery as a classroom, laboratory, and gathering space, which inspires exploration, reflection, and healing. I could go on, but I'll just stop there. But the one thing I do want to say is I'm very grateful. 2 years ago, we had a program called the Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander Museum Institute, and Mina was one of our 19 participants representing 13 island communities. And so it's been a privilege and an honor to get to know her better through this process, and just so proud of the work that she's done. And thank you so much for being a part of this panel.
Wow, it's my turn. Is it okay if I invite our panelists up so that they can be with us? Yeah. Why don't we have our panelists come up? We have Emily, Carl, Megan Cope, and Meleanna Meyer. Come on up here, you guys. We'll fit. I just feel extremely humbled to be a part of this conversation, and the kuleana to lead this discussion with these incredible artists and amazing humans is extremely humbling. And I know this topic, from the Beautiful Days events, it means so much to each and every one of us here. So I am humbled and proud to be a part of this conversation. And just to say, I've, from Hawaii Island, from Hawaii, been a lover and observer of the triennials, of the biennials. And to be here, you know, among such powerhouses and mana-filled people is like kind of wild for me. So, so I just want to mahalo to, you know, Rose, Josh, everybody who has built this to what it is, and being so inclusive to include voices from all over the world and just all of your work. So mahalo, mahalo nui. Yay. You know, before we begin, I'd like to, you know, ground ourselves in this moment. We're sharing together in the acknowledgement of all of our kupuna who made this moment possible and built the strong foundations upon which we stand. We acknowledge and honor the kupuna and the living descendants of this aina. And we recognize the importance of focusing on healing right now, with the suffering and trauma, violence occurring in all corners of this world. And, you know, we really hope that we find comfort, joy, and love through our conversations today. So that's what we're thinking. And if we could stand up and to further ground us in the conversations, because, you know, it's going to be, you know, I had the chance to speak with each of these artists. There's so much love, there's so much hope and joy in what they do. So in order to ground us, before we get started, if we could all stand and share in eho mai together. Could you start us off? Sure.
Eho mai kai ke mai luna mai he, o na mea huna no e au, o na mele. Eho mai, eho mai, eho mai, eho mai kai ke mai luna mai e, o na mea huna no e au, o na mele. Eho mai, eho mai, eho mai, eho mai kai ke mai luna mai e, o na mea huna no e au, o na mele. Eho mai, eho mai, eho mai,
Mahalo, mahalo. Be seated. In preparation for today, I found some beautiful writing that I would love to share. It's written by Hina Puamohala Nubel. Once flawed and weakened, now beautiful and strong. Once cracked and broken, now whole and restored. Used to mend bowls, paddles, canoes, gourds, and more. Pewa and other types of patches, ho'oikaika, increase structural integrity and elevate aesthetic appeal. Rather than casting important items aside, we repair them, continue to use and love them, then pass them on to the next generation. So again, I had an incredible opportunity to talk story with each of these artists, and even, you know, some friends talking about the literal sense of Pewa and how that could be the foundation for a challenging discussion. And one of the things I talked with Kamalu and Kapaliku from Bishop Museum, and what is not a Pewa is not a Band-Aid that can be slapped on top to try to fix things. It's not that. Pewa are transformative. And the treasure is no longer the same piece as it was before. It becomes a new piece, and it gives life to it. And with those repairs, it is more special, structurally sound, and more beautiful, right? We talked about that earlier, that it is actually more beautiful and takes on that joy. So we're hoping that this conversation, Auntie Meleanna is like, okay, well, we have 85 minutes, but this is rather a lifetime conversation. So just to get the ball started on your life's conversation here, we're gonna do that. And also taking a cue from Nina, instead of reading the bios, which are available on the Hawaii Contemporary website, we're gonna have our incredible artists here tell us who they are and who they bring with them.
Aloha mai kako. Carl F.K. Powell. Let's see, hail from Kailua, currently on the island of Mokuoke'awe. I bring with me my ohana, present, past, and future.
Aloha mai kako, ova Meleanna Meyer. I he kua'ana no kia, no kela family no hoi Meyer Aluli. I am a Meyer Aluli. I get to be a maker, okay? So I am a maker. I make films, I make dreams, I make lays around state capitals, I make I make trouble, and I make joy a part of, actually I make healing a part of my work, which is really important. And I bring our mother. You would love to meet our mother. She's the sweetest, most wonderful, extraordinary. And she was our fearless supporter. That's what she was. And her name is Emma Akana Aluli.
Yura Murumbabiyi. Hello, it's a beautiful day. My name's Megan Cope, and I belong to the Quandamuka peoples. For those of you who don't know, that's southeast Queensland, coastal island community, Queensland, Australia. I bring with me, I guess, the complexity of my whiteness through my mother, and the ancestors of my father, the Quandamuka people. I do this through a sculptural practice and paintings also. That shall do.
Malolele, kia ora. My name is Emily Mafile'o. I was born and raised in Aotearoa. My father is Tongan from Tongoleleka, Hawaii, and my mother is Palangi from what goes back to Scottish and English ancestry. Today I bring my sisters, Bea and Babsy. We are part of Taro Patch Creative. In the room, we've also got our wider community. I like to think that they were here with us. And I always like to have both my grandmothers with me, Granny Bea and Granny Elizabeth. Mala'a pito.
And like I said, like using the Pewa as a tool for this discussion, it provided us ways to dive into, ways in which artists are Pewa, art is Pewa, and how we can help the community, and help ourselves through life, really navigating this life. And in an effort to break it down in some of the ways that the conversations that we've had, of Pewa, what that is, and the examples that it can give us for this conversation, we kind of broke it down in 4 steps, 4 things that, in order to heal something, you have to know that it is of value, something that is valued and should be cherished. So that inherent understanding of what our knowledge is and what our kupuna practiced, that is precious and should it be, damaged or cracked, that it is worth repairing, right? We also, secondly, have to acknowledge and recognize the cracks that we see. So, and not shy away from difficult conversations and not pretend things are cool when they're not. That's number 2. Thirdly, we have to have the skills to fix things. If you don't have the skills or know someone that can help you, you have to seek out that information, right? So you can't, you have to continue to gather the tools along the way and let those tools evolve. And maybe you need new tools sometimes. The old tools might not work all the time. And then lastly, once repaired, we have this precious treasure that we can enjoy and pass on to our descendants and enjoy ourselves and have something that includes that mana in it. So it's been really fun to dig and geek out on Pewa and the meaning for this panel discussion. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from the artists, and we're just gonna really dive into it. But I will say, the artistic practices of this roundtable, the artists, it's so profound at the different ways that their work incorporates healing and their processes that they have each gone through, and what they do and the light that they have shined on so many things so that we can heal and communities can heal. So my first, and actually it's kind of like we have kind of like one question for this panel because we want to have a discussion and want to have it free flow, but you'll get to see some of the work from the artists too. But I'd like each of you to start off sharing, on your artistic journeys, what cracks did you see and discover in your artistic practice, and how did acknowledgement of these cracks and damages affect your practice and healing journey, and if you can share some examples of the work that you've worked on. We have your images. So, Megan, can we start with you? I had to do the slides in the right order, so okay. Yes. Okay, will this work? There we go. Surprise! There we go.
Okay, so I guess I started out pretty angry and teaching a compulsory course at Griffith University, and the course was Indigenous Art Practices and Protocols. And what made me angry was the resistance from the non-Indigenous students to learning and receiving, our ways of our history, our culture, our ways of knowing things. But this led me to making art and making maps, actually. I mean, the landscape's changed a lot in Australia. I mean, I'm talking about the time about, 17 years ago, where, I would say, hands up who believes this is Aboriginal land, and no hands would go up. Wow. I mean, now it's very different. Now people are acknowledging country everywhere we go in all of our formalities, and it's really, really wonderful. But I guess, that was the context for me to start making maps and using military maps and bringing our place names back into the space as a way to see country the way we see country. And to formalise that. And I mean, I was also really inspired when I went to Aotearoa for the first time. I was just like, oh, this is normal here in some places, Yeah. So that was really fantastic. But, one time my housemate, who's a white fella, journalist, and he said, oh, it's so cool, like everyone, you're really doing really well and everyone's buying your work and it's really cool. And I was like, oh, yeah, is it? Like, okay. He said, yeah. I said, what do you think's going on? And he said, oh, I think, people they think, oh, that's nice. That's what it used to be called. And it really, it really kind of hit me. And so I stopped doing it for a little while. And I thought I'll just think about this. And then that led me to, I guess, looking a bit deeper into other maps of country and going a bit more closer into our community and relationality on country. So I started to talk about middens. And for people who don't know, middens are ancestral shell piles. Midden is not an Aboriginal name. It's I think it's a Dutch name referring to refuse or waste. So, yeah, I started talking about middens in my work and what happened to those, because they were removed from the landscape. They were mined and used to build the foundations of the colony in Australia all throughout the East Coast. And I've since learnt in many places that the colonisers came to. So there's been a few cracks that allow for pause and new strategies to repair. And I don't know how long you want us to talk, or do we come back, or?
No, I mean, you can keep sharing.
Okay.
If you want me to move the slide.
Oh, okay. I'll keep going, because what happened with the midden works was, actually I started another work before this one here, Reformation. My first strategy as an artist was to connect the material with the object, or the oyster on a solid base. And so I made these sculptures called foundations, and I don't have a picture here. But what that led to was public conversations about what is a midden. I found that so many people didn't know. And so that compelled me to become more explicit with the actual form. This work is 12,000 hand-cast oyster shells made with cement as a way to kind of, I guess, for people to visualise what these shell forms may have looked like or did look like. And then after about 8 years of doing that over and over in museums and everyone wanting one and asking for one, I got really pissed off, because I realised I was really kind of appealing to the colonial appetite for our grief and our losses and all of those sorts of things. And I think it's very important, you know, to talk about these things. I don't regret the story about this, but at some point I realised that I was really kind of performing something that doesn't really benefit me or my people, and maybe really question, like, what is our culture, what is our heritage, what are our stories, what do we want to do, actually? Like, at what point do we, you know, take control of our self-determined futures? What are the things that we want to see? And, you know, so I decided, well, I don't want to really work in museums for a little while, you know. I want to go back to Yarrabinja, which is saltwater country. I want to go back to Quandamuka. And I started just hanging out more with relatives, just more, like just going home more. And spending time with the fishing families. My great-granny and Uncle Ricky's granny were really good friends. And they used to work on this oyster bank together. And they were very tough times back then. But that work allowed them to have extra money to buy nice clothes that protected the children from being taken away. So I just started to hang out there more. And then I realised how tough they were doing it, and how at every turn the system is designed to, like, punish them, fine them. You know, that's just, like, impossible to get ahead. So I thought, well, you know, the arts has heaps of money. I'm going to try and get some money and pay my family, my relatives, to do art with me, even though they don't really like art or know or care for it, you know. And so this led me to, spending time with Uncle Ricky on the oyster bank, and he was kind of doing this passive resistance of like not participating in the commercial oystering, which you have to have if you have a lease. You know, you have to be performing, producing, and supplying the marketplace. But he wasn't really doing that, but he was showing me like the natural reef clusters that were coming back. But he was also saying how hard they were having it, because our islands run parallel to the land, and there's a big river that runs into that. So we sort of receive everything when it rains. And so there's a lot of mass die-offs of all of the natural native reefs, wild reefs. So I decided to think about living sculptures. What is it to make artwork that is alive and not just an object captive in a museum? What does this look like? What could it be? And so we developed a concept, Kinyangara Guanyamba, and these are like these oyster poles that are cultural objects. We can go to you can see what they look like. And they're very simply just burugari, which is cypress pine, which is endemic, and it's also a timber that our ancestors used in aquaculture, and oyster shell waste. We just drilled a hole and put it back, because we know that the Kinyangara likes to grow, you know, like us, with each other, in communities, in, you know, big kind of cities, maybe not cities, but, you know, communities. And so by returning this material back to the sea, it kind of provides a magnet and a safe space for the babies to grow and thrive. I mean, oysters do grow on a lot of things, but when you return that shell waste or that shell material, it's like their ancestors, they come back and they grow really fast. Wow. So, we've done a few of these poles now. I think there's 5 plantings, and they're like, first one I did was 2 years ago, and now they're about like this wide on the poles. They look like, you know, they kind of look like, you know, the kebab shop with like so meaty and full. So that's kind of the best Pewa so far. Yeah.
There's one more slide.
Oh yeah. That's one of the forms from the sky. So they rest on the intertidal zone near Maiora, which was the mission that held our old people. And this area is the only oyster lease in the hands of Aboriginal people. And, you know, I grew up with a lot of stories about how this site kept our old people alive, because we were able to keep fishing and keep eating our native foods and be strong in, you know, other areas, other communities only had access to rations. So it's a very important place for all of our community as well, which is quite remarkable, actually. So the idea is to, through art, rematriate this place. Maiora is actually a Māori name, apparently. Our name is Mungalba. I only just learnt this, so I'm keen to learn more about how this name arrived on our country. So that's thank you.
Mahalo. It's alphabetical. And I ask Emily to share, but I'm so excited when Megan was talking about roping your family in and making it a family affair. You know, I had the pleasure of watching their film for My Father's Kingdom. It was really, really incredible. So, mahalo, mahalo. Can you see that?
Kia ora, everyone. I sort of, the slides are a rough overview of what the Taro Patch Creative is all about. So my sister and I went to art school over 25 years ago. I think she's dropping a couple of years off there, but we went through art school together, and then we got into TV and film as well as exhibiting as artists, and worked in many different situations. I was a art tutor in a middle school, a community art tutor. There was busy in the TV and film world, going from art department to director, camera, now producer. And I had the opportunity to also work in an art gallery in Aotearoa. And we kind of realised that we couldn't really find our space, our place, a place where we wanted to be. Yes, we loved the creative arts, but there was just something not quite gelling. Being on set, you have to have tough skin. I still, after all these years, get nervous about walking into an art gallery, even if it's my own show. I don't know what my problem is, but it didn't feel natural. So long story short, Via decided to put us all through family therapy by creating her film for My Father's Kingdom, which explored the dynamics of our family, particularly of our father and brother, and trying to understand some of the ways our father thinks, and I think also, you know, this whole journey is about who am I, where do I fit in, being hawhikasi. We're Tongan, we're also Palangi, but we're not Tongan and we're not Palangi, so where's our space? So that sort of came through in the film as well. But after that, we had everyone coming up to us and telling us their stories and wanting to share the journey or the story that they have of their life. So we decided, well, we need to run with this. And we created Taro Patch. We're an old papatai in a rundown building. Used to be an old cozy club. And now we service. I think our part of our father has come through. We serve the community, and we cover everything from visual arts to help people who are trying to come up in the TV and film world. We work with Sa'ili Mālo tangata, the Pacifica disability community. We go into corrections, we work with the tāne in there. And we do it through storytelling. So up there you can see John. He's an adaptive boxer, and he was from our Talaloto Whale program, and we had an exhibition at Fresh Gallery. Down the bottom there we have it's mostly a men's group, but on that night women were there as well. And it's Talanoa Tuesday, where guys come in, sit down, have some kava and yarn about life. So yeah, our goal at the Taro Patch is, funnily enough, we do everything through offer. And I guess that's what Again, we've been taught what you give out is what you receive back. So we also know that we've had a very privileged life, been able to go to art school, been able to create crazy art projects, been able to do a documentary about our film so we can understand our father, and now it's our turn to give back. To give back to those people in society that don't necessarily get to practice visual arts, that haven't had their story told. And so the Taro Patch that's what we're all about. We're about providing a safe space, about nurturing our children, about accepting people the way they come, about giving people hope. We can't heal, but we can provide them with opportunities. We can provide them with or build their belief system in themselves, and we can do that by wrapping around them in a whānau family context. So I feel like Pewa is intricate to everything that we stand for, and I was really tickled pink when I received the email about it. And I guess it's also acknowledging that we work in a very privileged space. We work with people sometimes when they're at their most vulnerable self. Every day we are learning. This is a whole new thing for us, so we are learning as we go. We're shape-shifting to the people that come in to fill those gaps. And just as we try to help other people, they help us in return. And so we've started, like we have the kids in the school holiday, they were getting we've got this patch of grass by our car park, and we decided we're going to plant a garden there, and we had them all out there digging, and we planted a kumala patch down the side there. We had floods last year, and all of a sudden our place became a drop-off zone, and it took us a week and a half, basically, or a little bit longer, to go through all of the donations and get them ready to go down. But that was a very fulfilling opportunity. At the time, it was complete chaos. We were walking around and there were just stacks everywhere. The kids thought it was wonderful. What's that one? I'm not sure what that one. That's not mine. Yeah, cool. But I guess, yeah, if anything, we're the holders of safe space. Yeah, that's where I would like to leave it. Thank you.
Thank you. Meleanna, if you want to go. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Actually, this is really exciting because Pewa. I think I kind of got the message, when I was at university, that when I was coming home to do work. By the way, my mother knew I was trouble, so she, at 12 years old, she said, "Here, work with this kiln, but just, again, don't burn down the house." And so she left me alone in the garage, and what I found at that very early age was that I found an independence that I just loved. So this is an example of that independence, because I've gotten to choose the beloveds I work with Carl being one of them, Al Lagunero, Solomon Enos, Kahi Ching, and Harinani Orm. So we have painted together off and on, and we all have our own careers, and Carl and I teach, and others, are professional artists full-time. But the privilege to help understand Pewa is to actually work with people who you love and trust, who can help you in the process of healing yourself. So that's what happens when you go to school. You come home and then you try to unlearn all the things that didn't serve you well, either for yourself or in your community. And it's really important to know because, we have aspirations to make whatever that is in life, to aspire, and granted, collections or this and that. But the most important thing for me coming home here to Hawaii was to be in community. So it's really great to be on a panel with a whole bunch of folks who do a lot of the same work, in community. So I'm a teacher. I can't eat my art. So that's why I'm a teacher, because I didn't have the confidence, given what I was told at university, then coming home and then going, wow, this isn't gonna work. I'm just giving it all away anyway, so what the heck? 2 young children, you need to keep up with paying bills and doing that kind of thing. Teaching gave me that opportunity. So in a crazy way, teaching and learning for me, and you've heard it today too, is that same word. It's ao, and then they're directionals like mai and then aku, right? Aku and mai, and that's great about the Hawaiian language because it's a very deep, poetic, elegant language that I'm learning. And so all of this in terms of Pewa has to do with the past, because I was angry when I got back in the 70s. I was just going, hey, what did I learn all this stuff for? Now I have to unlearn it because, nobody wants to hear my dossier or my resume. Nobody cares when I went to school. And I just have to fit into the communities and work with the communities and find out what their needs are. What a surprise. So, and actually you can imagine being in our family too. It was loud and lots of conversation, but what I learned most of all in terms of Pewa is how to be together with my family of colleagues to create healing moments and events. So this piece actually was part of a project that I convinced my beloved friends to participate in. We went out to Mokalia 1 week. So these pieces are all painted in a week's time. Even the piece downstairs on the ground floor of the convention center, that big orange piece that's 64 by 10 feet downstairs, our group did that. And we did it in actually 5 days because we had 2 days of teaching. So you want to know what epic and alchemical is, you just go down and check that piece out. It's called Hawaii Kulike Kako. This work is Aina Aloha. And the exciting part about Aina Aloha is that it talks about the land loving us. And these beloved colleagues and friends of mine, I dared them to help me get rid of pain. I said, well, it's just going to be easy. We're just going to put stuff up there that looks ugly and awful and painful, and then we're going to paint it away. So we did that in about 2 days and had 3 days to think about, well, what's next? So we finished this incredible piece, and I don't know, we might as well click it and see what else is on there. Oh, that's downstairs. All right, you're going to see. Same guys, except this guy was teaching, so he couldn't join us on that one. And let's just see what else is on there. Oh, I just brought him along because if you guys know who he is, he's Earl Kawa'a. And you need to know Earl Kawa'a because he does what we do, but with board and stone. He works to heal families with his skill set. Let's just keep, yeah. And this is actually the finish of that mural. And it was at the Bishop Museum, then it went off to Sharjah in the Middle East, it's been in Chicago. It's had a merry old time. It even was in Australia and New Zealand. And as a teacher, I get to learn. So I'm really a learner in the broadest sense of the word. What we did is we finished this incredible piece, And then this one, and Saul said, but we're not done with the pain yet. And I just went, oh my God, what could that mean? So believe it or not, we painted the other side of a mural. So this is a 20 by 6 foot piece. There is another mural on the other side. So then all of a sudden it wasn't a mural anymore, right? It's an installation. It needs to be in the middle of a room. You circumambulate, as Buddhists do, around sacred things. This piece has been sung to, prayed to, danced to, honored with lei and all sorts of things. And Pewa then is the way I get to work as a maker to do my healing. And then I get to heal with others in community. And it's really my privilege to work collaboratively with the folks I get to work with. Thank you. Thank you. Well, you know, it's out of order, but this is community. Sorry, it's all my fault. This ends up being a bunch of little flags that were given to me, and then by my friend Lynette Cruz, and she said, "Could you do something with these?" And I went, "Really? I'm kind of busy. Life is full." But 2 weeks later, we created a piece for Mauna Kea. So Mauna Kea is actually screening tomorrow over at the Pacific Film thing over here. So I get to do just incredible work in community that I love, that's meaningful. So Mauna Kea, of course, we're going to create a flag of sovereign voices and give access to these children. So, my dear, what did I send you? What else? Okay, so to the right, I'm so sorry, is what is on the other side, and this is Carl's deep contribution, and he'll go next. Whatever comes, it's got to be his. He started doing these tessellations. You see those tessellations again? And this was on the red side, and I said to Carl, I said, "Didn't you get the memo? The memo's about pain and suffering." And he goes, "Well, Kumi, you said we could bring the peace and the healing from the other side," which at that point was a revelation to me because it gave me an opportunity to sit in the corner and cry properly. So I want you all to know that this is the genius of working together with people. More creatives are better in that sense of allowance for brilliance. So I just had to brag about him anyway. So, and that's the end of No, just make that go away. See, those are those Pewas. She's just put the whole thing in. She didn't even look at the slides. Come on now. All right, so yay, here we are. Okay. Silly.
Aloha, I'm a liar. Just want to get that out. You see, for me, art, there's been a lot of tears, a lot of blemishes, some of them known, others unknown, others even made up. And art has always been there for me as that Pewa. The piece on your left, appropriately, is Eho Mai. And that piece was created when I was in Aotearoa pursuing my MFA at Te Toiho, which is no longer there, and the building is no longer there. There's an apartment there now. But it was depicted as being, or explained as being, the Maui Art Department of Elam School of Fine Arts. But my professor, the late Sawamuru, and Brett Graham, who I had met while he was doing his MFA at Manoa, explained the place or the program as new art. So toi being art and ho being new. So we were all coming together, and art was again, a Pewa for all of us, because we were finding our identities or strengthening them. And for me, being away from home, again, art was allowed me to bridge that gap, that yearning I had for home, but also as an artist trying to search for my identity. And growing up from being in a heavy Western society and wanting to pursue art and looking at artists all your life that you can't relate to, but you're told this is the blueprint to be successful and to have that career. So while I was there, I started to look deeper into who I am as a Hawaiian, and start to make those connections from afar. And so that piece was me, again, the art connecting me back to my culture, something that I could have pursued, but again, influenced by others that you think know more and better than you, and you pursue other things. So learning my language, I learned through my art, through my titles, through Mele and Oli. So Eho Mai was my kind of introduction into being together with like-minded and light-spirited people. So that's that piece there. So it was fitting that we started with Eho Mai. We can go back. Yeah. Art also not just addressing internal rifts, but also community rifts, societal issues. So back in, oh my gosh, when was it? It was a while now. It was the 40th anniversary of the landing of Kaho'olawe by the 9 protesters. And I was privileged. My wife curated, my wife is Dr. Marata Tamaida, and she curated a show up at the Burke Museum with Holly Barker and Jan Beckett and I, the late Jan Beckett, as of recent, who did a body of work of documenting Kaho'olawe. And he asked me to join him in the show. So we saw it as an opportunity to, again, try to mend our past, and in doing so, like Mina was saying, addressing the ugliness that's there, addressing the hurt, the pain, and from that trying to create something that's beautiful, but also something that creates discussion and conversation. All right, the Weber Kettle Grill. That was, again, addressing, this was internal, but also an external issue. It was my approach to addressing what I thought was ridiculous and still is federal recognition, that as a people, we need to ask permission or be recognized by another people. And to address something ridiculous, I wanted to do something ridiculous. So I created FUMPA, the Post-Historic Museum of the Possible Aboriginal Hawaiian. And I took on the role as the acting curator or director. And I would go to my local hardware store, which was the archaeological site, A29, I believe it was coined. And I would gather implements and carve them and turn them into what could be potential artifacts or sacred objects, and challenge people's notion of what is sacred in the process of identification and identifying and permission and all that went along with it. So I was, again, blessed to be in a group show at the NMAI in 2011. Isabella Hughes, curated that, and it was the first time that we not only were having that show there, it was also at the Transformer Gallery. And so it was Solomon Enos and I in the NMAI, Punikuka Hiko, who had a piece at the NMAI outside and also in the Transformers, and then my Ka'i Tubbs had pieces in the Transformer Gallery. And the title of the show was This is Hawaii. And it was amazing. The Smithsonian created all these cisterns and everything, and had my pieces displayed as like museum, artifacts. And it was really interesting being a fly on the wall and watching people come in and then barging out enraged that this is not Hawaii, what is this? And some people got the satire and irony of what they were looking at. So the Weber grill is a possible ceremonial cooking device. And at openings at Mark's Garage, when Rich Richardson was there, he was very supportive of this idea. And one of the shows, I had another grill outside and I was cooking at the opening. And people were questioning, should you be using an artifact to cook with? But it's, again, that Pewa art being that Pewa can also be used in a humorous way, right? And creating that link to pull two opposites or two peoples or ideals together. The wiener roast there, that was from, again, addressing internal and generational eha or cracks. So years ago when I was self-teaching how to carve, teaching myself how to carve, and I started to look at all of our ki'i, sort of wooden images of our ancestors, and noticing that there's most part, no genitalia. And trying to rationalize why is that? Why would we leave that off? And then, coming up with the idea that they're gods. They don't need genitalia. They can go boom, boom. But then to discover that with the arrival of missionaries and also the overturning of the kapu system, that our way of looking at our ancestors and portraying them, we not only destroyed them and defaced them by the change in religion or spirituality, well, I guess religion, right? That there was that generational hurt and disfigurement of our ancestors at that time. So one, we're erasing, but also not the past, but also the future, because you're erasing our piko for the future. And so I started to do a whole series of remasculation and remembering. Something my wife wrote about, and then also Kavika Tengan also started to write about it too. And so I would do all these large phallus ule and have them as conversational centers or pieces. And again, it was always interesting watching people's reaction, especially the adults, and how they would go approach them and start giggling and laughing and wondering, whoa, what's this all about? And then how the kids would always come up and like touch the piece and interact with a totally different mentality and experience. And so at this piece was at the opening of, it was called Pewa, and it was with Solomon Enos, and it was at SP, what was it called back then? SP 15, 35, 50? SPF. Thanks, Josh. And so the idea there was to address this generational trauma and to look at triggers to reflect and to recall that trauma so that we could address it and heal. And so outside I had carved, prior I had carved driftwood and native woods into ule. And then I put them in the grill, and as people were coming in, I was cooking them up. And people thought, oh, this is the food, right? And it was like, oh. And then they realized what I was doing, and I was kind of questioning. And then while the smoke started to billow, so the smoke was the trigger. It was the Pewa. And it flowed into the space, which I had the downstairs, and then Solomon had the future upstairs, his seed pods. And so the smoke connected both spaces and recalled the past. So what was interesting was at the end of the cooking, the native woods remained because they were the denser, harder, slower growing woods, and all the driftwoods went to ash. So again, art allowing for that Pewa to not just to mend, but also to, again, like we talked about, addressing and seeing the issue and digging at it. You got to clean out that void. And we talked about how you need to have that understanding, that knowledge, and you also have to know about the materials, the techniques, all those different things. But I think it starts with wanting to be able to see it, right? To open yourself up to that. Yeah, it's mahalo. Oh my God, there's more. Oh, sorry, there's more. Wow. Meleanna, did you sneak those in there?
I'm innocent.
All right. So the piece on your left is the Law of the Splinter Paddle. So that was from a series, traveling show with author Kavika Ayer in his book, Kamehameha, Rise of a King. And it was from the show Niuhi Shark, Pain and Prose. So that was a traveling show to commemorate the 200 years of Kamehameha's passing. And the purpose of that show wasn't just to highlight Kavika's book, but it was to take the story of Kamehameha to multiple communities, and then to bring kupuna from those communities onto panels like this or roundtables, and to talk about the different perspectives or experiences of Kamehameha. So again, having that opportunity to heal. And then the Aipohaku piece from last year's series. Again, art being that vehicle, that medium that heals us, again, in personal ways. And then as artists, we have the opportunity to put that out in the public, which can be very scary, as we know. And but also at the same time, it has that opportunity for us to hopefully inspire and to allow that space in those galleries for these kind of this kind of dialogue and questioning, and again, building that confidence or that courage that was talked about earlier to want to move forward and to heal. So.
Wow. Thank you. How are we doing on time? Oh, 4:32. Do you guys have any questions for each other at this time? You guys are golden grams. Maybe it's not a question for each one of you, but I think so much of what we've been talking about and your work illustrates is like creating new systems and reinventing things, unlearning and reinventing systems, and again, thinking about truth speaking and how often we lie to ourselves and our community. And I'm just really curious, if any of you have examples of like where you've really had to push to create a new system that is more regenerative and more healthy. And if any of you guys would like to share, Megan, I think of even you switching from gallery installations to, structures, wood structures that are growing the muscles, like that's quite a radical change. I think that's all of your work for all of our panelists are very radical in what you folks do and push things. So if you want to share about that.
Well, I mean, I guess it was just, it came because I was thinking more and more like, what do we need and what do we have time for, what I don't have time for, things like that, and getting to a point where, it's just really urgent now to change. And the fact that, lots of my family members don't like art, but then we're, culture is alive. We are alive. We're doing things every day. And then just to try and connect these things, because everybody in the community loves oysters, and everybody is devastated by what's going on, and also feel like we don't have any option. And it's kind of interesting where I'm from, because we fought the state for 20 years and many elders passed, and then we have this system now called native title, which is this recognition from the state that we are the traditional owners, and there's all these like brochures and like annual reports saying that, we're caring for country. But, even the land and sea rangers are just so frustrated that, we actually don't have any autonomy. And so I'm just like, well, art's this really special thing. If I've learnt anything, from going to art school and being around incredible artists, is that we've got this like tricky kind of tool of subversion that we can utilise, and that we can maybe duck under the structures and these things that are designed to kind of keep us in captivity. So I can't remember what the question is, but yeah, it is radical, but it's also really normal at the same time, which is what I love. Like when it comes to the way we are as Indigenous people, like we're so creative and we're so full of love, and we just really need our land back so that we can look after it. And we don't have the money to kind of take them to court, continuously either. So how do we do this? And it's just like, really awesome to kind of find a way to do that. I don't know, at some point we're going to have to reconvene as a community and talk about this, whether we're confident to use it as a strategy, like proper. Because at the moment it's like my little project that, family have let me do, and but I know that there are relatives who understand or see it as a form of sovereignty. So that's kind of really exciting, because that's healing for us.
That reminds me of what Meleanna told me yesterday, of money is not our currency. And the magic that Meleanna can be a catalyst for with very little to no money. Can you share a little bit about that?
I'm only going to share that there's a 3,000-foot lei that's around the Capitol. And when I was 6 weeks ago talking to my cray-cray, another one of our dear beloveds, I said, do you think we can do it? And he said, yeah, but we can't because we have no permits, no money. I said, when did that ever become a problem? So I said, you just tell me we can do it, and then I'll take care of it. So here's the way that works. It works in community if you have people who trust you, who know you're not. Oh, and by the way, I did have to change words in this little one-page proposal. I had to take the word out, guerrilla. I had to take, guerrilla action. I had to take out the word derelict. I had to take out all these words that were really truthful words, and that's we're all about is oia'i'o. We're about the truth, okay? And magic. 6 weeks ago, we only had 3 weekends, 3 days to work on that giant plumeria mural, and we did it for everybody here in the room. And again, Carl would have been roped into this, but he was on another island. And the way it works is you have to believe in your work. You have to believe in your agency. And I was just sitting around going, well, what's going to happen during FestPac? And what's going to do this and that? And then Saul and I just went, hey, let's just try this. And, you know, granted, there's a lot riding on these big projects, and you don't do this lightly. I'm making it sound like it's like some, you know, walk in the park, but there was nothing like a walk in the park. We had a 501c3, the East West Center, that helped us. We had Jasper Wong and all of his connections, 100 volunteers come in for 3 days, because we couldn't keep up with Saul. It was one Saul to 6 of us. So we just kept on going around and around and around. You thought we were crazy people. But it's a perfect example for community for all of us. If you really are a community, you can really draw on community. And you can draw on resources that are other than money. And oh great, money came in. Angels came in, the HTA, all sorts of people. But there was no guarantee, which is why we do our work. We do our work because we're advocates for heart, for healing, and for the courage that we need to speak in the world. And I just applaud, you know, all of you, us, for doing that kind of work, because it's not easy.
Any other comments? You guys good? I'm going to open up to questions on the floor. If anybody has any, you can please rise. Yeah. No? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that, so, you know, we had to assemble a team, and it was, you know, it was this underground guerrilla, you know, strategy, you know, for a little while. And I learned a lot, actually. That it was interesting because lots of people wanted to get involved, and there was this guy who, you know, turned out to be like a total traitor and like dobbed the project into fisheries. And yeah, I learned a lot along the way. But in lots of ways, like, see, my logic as an artist was to return the rocks to the substrate, because after the middens were mined and the, you know, shells, the live oysters were then mined off the rocks, and then the rocks taken and put in colonial garden beds. I was like, you know, correction meant, you know, put the rocks back. But that guy who dobbed me in, I mean, you know, he also told me that it's illegal to put rocks on the sea floor. So I could have gotten my family into lots of trouble. In a way, it was a blessing. But then I also realised I needed like a professor or someone like really serious. So we had this guy, Dr. Nigel Preston, come on board, and he's a white fella and lived on the island for a long time, but he's also worked at the CSIRO for 40 years, and this incredible ally, and he was so excited about this. After 40 years of bureaucracy, he was like, let's do this, you know, and he was like, and we're not going to tell anyone, and when it gets in, and everybody finds out about it, there's nothing that they're going to be able to do, because this is going to win the hearts of everyone. Like, this is, you know. And when we did it, he was like, let's take this to Kenya. I mean, he's doing all kinds of restoration projects. You know, all these peak scientific agencies and groups are doing this. I want to keep doing it as a form of art, because I want it in the hands of regular people. I think it needs to stay free. You know, it's really a technology or an idea. I mean, there are lots of restoration projects where they put the shell waste into wire cages. This has been done everywhere, but this is, I think, a better way to do it, because we find ourselves with more intimacy on the intertidal zone, connecting with country properly, and doing it as small groups or, you know, all the way through. So, I mean, I'd love to do it everywhere, and certainly, hopefully maybe do it here, and in another biennial next year also. But it's, it takes a village. I don't know what it's going to take if it becomes formalised. I mean, it's successful at home because I know the country, we know what we were up against, and we had the right people there, you know. So it's tricky in that sense. And I guess in that way we need to be working with people who, who are not afraid to just go, because you know the Blue Commons or the intertidal zone now it's largely been privatised, and so it makes it tricky. But certainly, I'd love to do this everywhere, and the sooner we do it, the quicker those spaces can heal.
There's any other questions? Nobody has? Yes, Nancy.
Carl sort of mentioned this in his talk a little bit. So to install a Pewa, you have to sort of carve space for it. So I wanted to sort of hear from you all what you had to sort of leave behind, what you had to sort of get rid of to make space for you.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you want to go first?
Thank you for your great question. First of all, we left behind a paycheck to be able to do this work, to be able to start the Taro Patch. We were self-funding a lot, and we were trying to find funds. It was a very humbling process, actually, starting out. We had to leave behind our thoughts and practices that were taught to us in our previous jobs. We could now form a way of working that was inspired by our Indigenous ancestors. We had to build a whole lot of belief in what we were doing, and Vera carries that the most. She fully was the one that was like, we're going to do this, and I'm like pulling back, going, hold up, we don't even have the money to pay the lease. How are we going to do this? So it's a whole new way of living. You leave behind the comforts of what you once knew. You know, you leave behind holiday pay, but the benefits totally outweigh that. And as my dad would say, this is our tapuaki to do this. This is our blessings, our blessing to do this. So, yeah.
Thank you.
I guess for me, what was left, maybe not abandoned, it's still there, was all the falsehoods and things that I was taught about being Hawaiian, and you know who I come from, and which, in order to create that space for the healing, I had to oki it or cut it out, move it to the side, but it's still there, and then now I can use it as a tool to help as a kumu, as a teacher of my students. I have that resource now as well to say, look, this is what I went through, and you know, with my sharing, hopefully you don't have to. and even more important, with our daughter, that, hopefully through us mending our pain, our blemishes, whatever it might be, that she's stronger for it too. And yeah, it's a blessing to have that privilege as well, to be in that place, to do those, take that kind of action as well.
Maybe I left behind that that anger or something, like this thing that once, this thing where I'm like constantly feeling like I have to defend, it's difficult to explain, but I left maybe like the ego or something, something like that. Was carved out.
You kind of have to leave that, especially with this kind of work, And if I were to answer that question, Nancy, I'd say that I left behind ideas of what I thought I would be in terms of professional, as in this or that, aspirations, and yet it isn't as if any of that's gone so much away as it's given me the freedom, I guess, to say I get to choose. I get to choose the work that's most meaningful for me, and that is a wonderful thing. That is freeing, because when I can get up and things give me energy every day, and I love what I do, despite the fact that I'm just dog-ass tired, just means I'm doing the right thing. So I just want to brag on the notion of Pewa, because if something's hard and difficult, doesn't mean it's not. In fact, it means it's worth doing. I don't know, maybe I'm just, a glutton for punishment, as they say, but I don't really believe that. I just believe that artists have such a critical role today, and we don't want soft kids, okay? We want the discipline. You can imagine what our house was like, with the discipline of things, but the joy. Our mother let us try everything we wanted to try. And she didn't say you had to be good at it. She just said, hey, try tap dancing. I was a terrible tap dancer, and I didn't like hula, but I loved cooking, okay? So to find and to give our children purpose, that's what Pewa is to me. Pewa is purpose. When you bust up and you want to do something in the world, find your purpose. Find that butterfly that's going to help you, do what you really aspire and love and want to do. So, it's humility that Pewa gives us a chance to connect to. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, we're going to wrap it up. Mahalo to each of you for sharing so generously and for uplifting all of us and reminding us how important community is, that we're not alone. And, together we can do incredible things. I'm just going to close with the second part of what Hina, Pua Mohala Nubel, I'm a big fan of hers, what she wrote. And this is how it goes. Building and repairing certain pilina, relationships, likely played a role in helping people to work together for the collective good. Like our ancestors before us, we overcome crises by working together and actively sharing knowledge and resources. We fortify our perspectives and innovate our approaches. We mend physically and strive mentally to keep moving forward. E ho'o'i kaika mau. So mahalo nui, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you. We got great work, so I'm looking forward to our work together. It's going to be great, right? And actually, that's something to think about.